So tell me about Mike Mann. Tell me about what's your I hear the term used throughout our company. What's in your DNA? I read a piece that you have over there, talks about your DNA. So obviously, tell me about your DNA, bud. Tell me who is Mike Mann.
And it's funny, when you do some of these interviews, the old always comes back up. The how did you get started in the business?
That's my next question.
Is it? Yeah.
Don't answer it yet.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
All right, don't answer it. I don't have to answer that.
No, go ahead.
Let me answer the DNA piece. I mean, so the why behind the why, I guess, if you will. I like what you said in the intro. It was like, mortgages is what we do. So we have a saying here, and it's actually going up on the wall. Mortgage is what we do, but it's not who we are.
Awesome.
And I mean, who I am, what drives me is the Veterans Initiative. It's not about doing mortgages for me anymore. It just isn't. The mortgage business is a vehicle to accomplish so much more things, so much more high-level stuff for our community, for our veterans. I know we'll go into that a little bit later, but it's just, my father passed away 9 years ago. He was a Vietnam veteran, disabled Vietnam vet. And when he was in the hospital bed dying, I just said to him, I don't even know where it came from. He used to advocate for veterans, used to get them more disability, more more money, more benefits. And I said to him, man, I'm gonna continue your advocacy for vets. And I had no clue what that meant. For the first few years, nothing happened. And then I met this wonderful woman who I call my mama here at Fairway, Louise Daxton. And Louise, with her initiative, really sparked some stuff inside me, and that's really the why we do what we do around here.
Awesome, that's awesome. Yeah, Louise is a great person. She will be on our panel at some point down the line if she so honors us with an interview. But so how long have you been in the business?
I'm in my 15th year. Okay. Yeah, September 2002, I started part-time. Actually, the gentleman you just met, Scott, he's the guy who got me into the business. Scott and Randy, both of them.
What were you doing?
I was a marketing rep for a beverage company. Okay. Just a wholesale beverage company. Actually, my job was to go out and put up promotions and build beer stacks and put signs on beer. He came up to me one day and he goes, "Hey man, you should try this thing called the mortgage business." And back then it was, we're sending out pink pieces of paper, people who had rates in the 7s. We're going to get you into the high 6s and pay all your costs, make a boatload of money, and do them again in a year. And so was the FHA refi boom.
Yep. I remember that very well.
Yep.
So didn't have anything about the mortgage business beforehand, other than the fact that Randy and Scott just said, "Hey, this is something you should try."
I didn't even have a mortgage.
Okay.
I didn't even know there were 2 G's in the word mortgage.
There you go. There you go. And so what's been your journey to Fairway? I mean, where did you start out with?
Well, I started out at that broker shop. It was called American Eagle, and we were just doing FHA refis. And I remember a guy. I'm going to give him a shout out here. A guy by the name of Harry Roberts. Harry said one day, "If you think this is the mortgage business, you're thoroughly mistaken. Right. It's going to get twice as hard. You're going to have to work twice as hard for half the money." Okay. So I equated in my head, I'm like, 4 times as hard, 4 times worse? Like, I don't understand. And he said, yeah, when the purchase business, you want to learn to purchase business. When the purchase business rolls around, we're all in for rude awakenings because we were all doing FHA Streamline, refi boom. So I actually exited the refi boom early.
Okay.
They were all still making money hand over fist, and I started rolling down the path of purchase.
Awesome.
And American Eagle was sort of a smaller regional broker. When I left there, I went to probably like I'd say a East Coast regional correspondent lender, and worked there for a couple of years. And writing was on the wall there. They were selling, and I stumbled upon Fairway by a gentleman who was in the office building where we just moved from.
Okay.
He used to be with Fairway.
Okay. And so never worked for a bank?
No.
Never did the banking thing?
No.
Okay. So talk about your production. What was your production first year in? How'd you do?
I've been in the business for 15 years, but I've only been in business for 7.
Okay.
I lived my first year over and over and over and over and over again, like 8 times in a row.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I came to Fairway, actually, that I really... So, I mean, I ran a branch for Capital.
Right.
But I still, first year in business, over and over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I really came to Fairway that I made it like I was running an actual business.
So for everyone out there, that's probably heard that first year in business over and over again. What do you mean by that?
Just starting over January 1, like, not having a plan, not having a business plan, not having systems in place. Systems was huge for me. When we got systems in place, we were able to, duplicate the same result. So you've heard of the EMyth. They talk about McDonaldizing, and I don't want to cheapen the mortgage business by saying we're McDonaldizing the mortgage service, but there are certain aspects of it that you can.
Right, franchise.
But I mean, at McDonald's, you have a French fry that you put fries into the thing for 90 seconds. You pull them out at this time, three shakes of the salt, right? So it's like there's parts of the business, of the process, if you will, that can be systematized. And once we created that perfect process one time, we just duplicated that. And we're always tweaking it, but we just duplicated it. Come from that. We call it the perfect loan process.
And then, did you find that, that until you started to develop systems, really you were more reactionary to the business as opposed to be a control of the business? Because I think that sometimes a lot of loan officers that I see, every year they seem to be doing roughly the same numbers no matter what they do. But what they don't do is they don't have something in place, a system in sorts, that really kind of changes their perspective of the business. They're just reactionary. They're reacting to the business. They're reacting to the next mortgage loan that comes in. They're reacting to the next set of leads that they get or whatever it is. They're not really creating systems to grow it.
Yeah, well, so you can either be reactive or proactive, right? And one of the things that I talk about here is getting your eyes up and looking towards the future. So, okay, we can talk about where the next loan is coming from, or the next 2 loans are coming from. But I'm already looking middle first quarter. Where's our business going to be coming from at that point? And it's the seeds we plant today that grow and will start to flourish February 1st. And then we cultivate them March 1st, April 1st, those relationships. Because, I'm in the relationship business. So we're about, meeting realtors, helping them grow their business. But there's a process to get to know, get comfortable. So today being November 1st, a loan comes in the door, it needs to close in 30 days. But I'm looking at February 1st. I'm looking down the road. What's our next initiative? What's our next program that we're putting out there? What's our next event that we're having? Yeah.
So you mentioned realtors. I'm going to deviate a little bit from my little script here. So you mentioned realtors. How do you relate to realtors? I mean, because obviously in terms of realtors, that's a big part of our business. I mean, whether, help, and I know I've spoken with some realtors, and they almost take offense to the to the concept of a loan officer helping grow their business. Obviously, these are realtors that aren't doing a lot of business, but how do you relate to that realtor that, basically kind of gives you pushback? Do you kind of just step away from it, or do you kind of say, hey, I'm going to make this work?
It's kind of like one of my mentors says, it's kind of like piano keys. Some piano keys just don't sound good together. They don't work together. And there's some that do, and the ones that do, I hear it all the time. Who does Michael Mann think he is, trying to teach real estate agents how to sell, how to be realtors? That's the furthest thing from the truth. I'm a marketer and I'm a brander. I'm in marketing and branding. I just happen to be in the mortgage business, or I just happen to be a loan officer. But that's my strong suit. It's marketing and branding. And if I can come alongside a referral partner, an agent, and help them grow their business to have a better life by sharing my expertise, which is marketing and branding, generating leads, cultivating leads, converting leads, and they can have a better life for that, then I've done my job, and things just kind of take care of themselves, if you will. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Yeah. But what you said to the agent, you said what happens when there's an agent that gives you pushback, or hey, some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting.
What's your rise of fame? It's without speaking numbers. I mean, obviously, just because obviously that we're sitting here talking about your success because you're successful. So what was your rise of fame, and where was your moment? What was the epiphany? I mean, understanding that systems was a part of it, but where did you really start seeing that things were changing, that you were becoming, you were becoming at the top of your game? I mean, you weren't the statistic anymore. And we talk about that because, in our business, we're a numbers business. So our numbers we're always talking about, the average loan officer does, somewhere between 10 and, a good solid average loan officer is doing somewhere between 10 and 14 million a year.
Yep.
In most markets on average. They're doing on average maybe about 70 units a year. Maybe probably even less than that, because realistically you're talking about someone who's doing like 3 to 5 units, and we're calling them a pretty solid loan officer. When you're closing 50 units, that's a lot different than just 3 to 5. Where did you start seeing that happen? I mean, what was that changing point, and how did that feel?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, it was the day I realized I wasn't as important as I thought I was.
And what do you mean by that?
It was the day I let go. It was the day I started building a team. It was the day I started trusting other people to do things that, quite frankly, I wasn't that good at. A lot of loan officers think they have to be the one putting out the fire. They have to be the one talking to the client about a pay stub. They have to be the one calling the realtor to say the appraisal didn't come in. You don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be you. And quite frankly, there's probably a lot of people that are better than you at it. But there's a lot of egos in our business, and it is what it is. It's just we think we're more important than we actually are. When you can find people that are, because I'll be honest with you, I'm really good at marketing branding. I'm good at making relationships. I'm good at networking. I'm good at going out and shaking hands and helping you put together a business plan, help you grow your business. I'm not really great at filling out line 302, how many dependents do you have? And it's really funny. She works here now, but she was my processor at the first company that I worked for. She absolutely hated my files. I had the worst files in the world, but I can go out and talk to 300 people in a month, and So when I realized that it didn't have to be me, and I started, so the funny part about it is I realized that I wasn't as important as I thought I was, started to hire a team, and then I didn't trust. So I would kind of delegate it, and then I would, if one thing went wrong, I would run back and go, oh, no, okay, no, cool, I'm going to take all this back. I don't trust, and then kind of regress, if you will. But you got to trust the system, you got to trust other people, and you got to allow them to make their mistakes. I have a saying with anybody that works here: you're going to screw up 2 out of 10 times. As long as you get the 8 out of 10 right, cool. The 2 out of 10, we'll work on it, and I won't be mad. You've got to know, if somebody can do it 80% as good as you, let it go. Let it go, delegate it. Let them take care of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
So walking around, you have a unique concept here, and just touching on it, I want you to talk about it a little bit, if you don't mind. I've noticed you have some different people that are different than all the other offices I've been in. You have different people on your team that have different sets of responsibilities. So talk about that, if you don't mind. What's your team dynamic? In terms of breakdown of not necessarily how many loan officers you have, but more along the lines of maybe how many loan officers that are working for your production, but how is it that, but your operations, if you would.
I have, so there's, what did we say, 7? We have 7 total loan officers within our organization, and 4 of them work on my personal production team. And they handle the leads that are generated by the team. Now, it's not just me that's out there generating business as well. So you met Holly, who's the office manager. She's also our events coordinator. She puts together all the events. Basically, all I got to do is show up, talk. She's setting it up. She's following up. She's sending everything. You know what I mean? So we work as a team in that aspect. We've got you met Venus. She's making phone calls all day long, inviting people to events, getting people there. They set them up. I just go in, kind of knock them down, I guess, and share the information, and then they follow up. So as they follow up, people know who we are. They send loans in. The loans are handled by the loan officers on my production team. So that's my production team's concept, if you will. Then we have outside LOs that we offer assistance in the sense of keeping them doing what they're really good at. They're good at going out and making relationships, but not great at doing the detailed loan packet. Well, we offer loan partners for them. So, for example, the one office I was telling you about in Jersey, Pinky, we were just having a conversation yesterday. She said, from last year to this year, I've doubled my business. And we got her a loan partner.
And just to add to that, Pinky did 8 loans last month.
She turned in 8 loans last month.
Which by all accounts, it's pretty solid month.
Especially in Jersey with those loan amounts up there. Yeah.
Especially solid month. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yep. So she's doubled her. She said year from last year to this year, she's doubled her business.
Awesome.
And she's only operating in the aspects of what she wants to be doing. You know, what she's good at, what she likes, and what she enjoys.
Just generating business.
Yeah.
So to the question of office expenses, I mean, at what point do you kind of, as you're growing your team and you see your team growing, I mean, like I said, your numbers from last year to this year have doubled. So obviously, you know, part of doubling numbers and tripling numbers is bringing on more personnel. And so at what point do you just bite that bullet knowing that you're going to have some, you're going to have some ramen noodle days so that you can eventually get back to that steak tartare?
Yeah, so, man, just so much is flooding into my mind as you say that. There are years, I bit the bullet. There are years that I didn't make very much money because I reinvested it back into marketing, into branding, into, initiatives. There are months that I would close $4 or $5 million in volume and make $0 and lose money. There were months we did that. Our break-even point continues to grow. I remember several years back, I went and met with Tom out of North Carolina, Tom Tucson. Yep. And when he shared with me what his break-even point was, I was like, how do you even stomach that? Because if I would have closed as much as his break-even point was, right, I would have been like ecstatic. It would have been ridiculous. But now my break-even point is starting to get there, and it's tough. It's hard. I think back to when the comparison about the iceberg. You only see the top 10% of the iceberg. Nobody sees the bottom 90%. That's kind of like my business. Right. Like you only see hey, now Mike's successful or whatever your definition of success is. You don't see the 90% under the water. You don't see the years where the months where we would close $5 million and I would lose 10 grand. Right. Try to grasp that concept. As an LO doing 3 to 4 to 5 loans a month, right, going, wait, you closed $5 million and lost money? But I've always thought of it as an investment. And my benefit, I guess, I wasn't married and I didn't have children at that point. I have a 7-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and I'm married. We bought a house. Man, I sometimes think I'm glad I'm not starting now. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot more to lose. There's a lot more at risk. It was just me. I think for the sake of who's watching this, it's very important to say I lost everything several times. I lost everything twice. We got everything on the line. You have all these expenses. And my daughter, who was born 3.5 months early, back in 2010, I was the only producer. And I had $25,000, $30,000 a month in expenses and bills, which I would love to have today, by the way. That would be amazing. But I was the only producer. And when she was born, I didn't know what to do. We didn't know if she was going to live or die. We did not know what life would be like. And I ended up wanting to quit. And when I tell you I lost everything, I lost my house, I lost all my money. Me and her mother split. It was tough. It was really tough. And I remember being down to like my last $1,000 and going, what is all this for, dude? Sure. And just I'm going to tell it because I think it's important because this is my story, right? So I ended up quitting for 48 hours here. Thank God I didn't hand in my resignation because I was here at Fairway. I was here at Fairway for a year at that point, year and a half. And I ended up quitting in my mind, and I actually picked up a newspaper. Started looking through all the jobs, and it's funny, there was all the same jobs when I picked up the newspaper out of high school. Right. All the same jobs. Cutco knives, forklift operator. I was like, what is going on? But what ended up happening was the doctor called us, and he ended up basically saying, okay, we had to sedate your daughter. Now, you got a picture. She's 12 inches long, 1 pound, 10 ounces at birth, in an incubator. We don't know if she's going to live or die. The doctor calls us in and says, we had to sedate your daughter. That's the bad news. The good news is we had to do it because she's a fighter. She doesn't give up. She's not a quitter. She must get that from her parents. That's awesome. And dude, that was the pivotal point. I felt the hand of God come down and smack me upside my head. Everything was in slow motion. And I actually felt God whisper into my ear and go, you're not done with this yet. Right. Do it right. And that was the pivotal. That was the pivotal time. That's cool. That was the pivotal point in my career. And I said, you know what? We're going to do this team thing right. I'm not going to be the only producer. I can't fall on my shoulders. We're going to build this thing. I'm going to delegate it. I'm going to trust. And that was it, man. That's awesome. November, December 2010. Literally.
To have the struggles and be able to fight your way through that. And because a lot of the banks were kind of, I think, had the pigeonhole on the market for refinancing their portfolios. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, to be in the correspondent world at that time, especially when there was, Dodd-Frank coming out and everybody saying, well, correspondent's going to go away, correspondent won't survive Dodd-Frank. Yeah, I mean, that speaks a lot to your character because, to be honest with you, to have that kind of stress, to have that kind of the hardship, but to persevere through it. It talks about it, and persevering is part of this business. I mean, absolutely. And it's because it's that really shaped me, and shaped what we built here. I think if you don't go through that hardship, and again, I went through it went through a hardship a couple times through my career. It was that one. It was that pivotal point when I had nothing else to lose. That really just inspired me to come out swinging with everything that I had. And you definitely did that. Yeah. You definitely did that, Mike. There are so many Mike Manns and so many Tom Tusions out there. The names that we hear that are big within our own company. But you all had a beginning somewhere. So what advice do you give to that beginner who now is getting this business for the first time, who's going out there and he's trying or she's trying to build their business, and they're getting a lot of real estate agents who say, hey, you know what? I'm already working with somebody, no, I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah. And they're on that teeter because obviously it's a commission business. When you're first beginning in this business, they're teetering between, did I make a mistake in doing this? Or what's my inspiration to move forward? What's your inspirational message to these guys in the beginning? And not only inspirational message, but, real practical message. Because sometimes we can give inspiration, but let's be honest, sometimes inspiration is something that there's no sort of, I don't want to say this the wrong way, there's no foundation and practical footprint for success. It's just, hey, you can do it. Okay, how can I do it? So how do you tell that beginner that comes in your office, look, dude, you're going to make it. I know you closed 2 loans last month. I know you don't have a loan closing for 2 more months. But what can you do? What can you give them in terms of a message that keeps them in it?
The first thing that's coming to my mind when you say that is don't try to be me and don't try to be Tom T. Don't try to be anybody else. Be you. Do what you want to do. I talk to so many people. So, we used to do 5 to 7 loans a month. Now we're doing between 50 and 70 every month consistently. So I've 10x'd my business. Right. So somebody who's doing 5 to 7 loans a month right now that wants to do 50 to 70, it took me 6, 7 years. Right. There was a lot of hardship. You're not going to do that overnight. You're not going to do that tomorrow. And maybe doing 50 to 70 loans is not for you if you're listening to this right now. Maybe just doubling your business is good enough. The other thing is, don't don't trade your relationship with your family for the business. I see so many people, I see too many people in this industry do that. In sales in general, do that. If you're following some big names out there, I won't mention any of the big names, but the motivators or whatever, they tell you that your kids don't want to see you for more than 15 minutes. You got to be working 18 hours a day. Man, I totally disagree with it. Maybe in the beginning, maybe to build, for a short period of time, but negotiate with yourself that you're not going to do it forever. And quite frankly, it's not worth ruining any relationships over. That's one thing that comes to mind. The other is, I think a lot of people in our industry have expectation for instant gratification. I know I do. Yeah. And I know I'm frustrated, on a weekly basis that this hasn't happened yet. You gotta have patience. Because quite frankly, I look at some of the other names here at Fairway too. I appreciate that you say, my name's a big name at Fairway, but I don't think it is. There's so many producers here that are doing so much more, bigger numbers, higher numbers, but I don't want to be that necessarily. Right. Because be careful of who you want to be or who you want to model or who you look up to. Because if somebody's working 18, 19, 20 hours a week, the relationship at home stinks, but they've got, again, I'm not talking about anybody here in particular.
No, gotcha.
I'm just saying, in any company.
I think the message you have is important. It's you got to define who you are.
Yeah.
You got to define who you want to be.
And what's important to you.
Yeah, and in defining who you want to be and defining what's important to you, I think that gives you that sort of drive and motivation. You talked about it earlier, your why. You have a why. And I think that maybe a lot of people, even when you're beginning in this business, I think that's probably the first thing they have to write down is their why. And that why may change. Ultimately become solidified. Would you agree? But I think it may change. Why you had in 2002 or 2000, your why in 2002 is probably not the same why you have after the passing of your dad.
No, I can tell you it isn't. In 2002, my why was I want to make a boatload of money,
sure,
and I don't want anybody telling me what to do.
And ironically enough, your why in 2010 completely changed who you are and what you do in this business, and actually became more of a motivator than just a goal.
Yeah. It's funny. Me and you met Jason earlier. Jason and I have a conversation about this all the time. That it's never been about the money for us, And when we make it about the money, everything seems to become more difficult.
Yep.
And then when it doesn't become about the money, it just happens. That just happens.
Agreed.
You have to celebrate your achievements. I think a lot of times, if you're like me, a lot of times we focus so much on, hey, what went wrong? We got to fix that. When something goes right, we kind of say,
we forget to take appreciation for it.
I think you should just take a step back, and I'm not saying you need to beat your chest and put, your accomplishments in neon lights or whatever, but I think it's okay to celebrate your successes, because when you achieve X and you don't celebrate it, but you're so hard on yourself if you don't achieve it, there's just no reward there.
Yeah, that makes sense. You kind of lose perspective of what you lose perspective of yourself. You don't, when you have achievements or your team has achievements and you don't celebrate those achievements, then they kind of go unappreciated. Yeah. Whether it's yourself or whether it's for your team. And I think that, it becomes, well, we expected you to do that. We expected you to do an amazing job, or go above and beyond. I expected you to go above and beyond, but I think that regardless of what it is, you're right. You have to say thank you. You have to say congratulations. There was a piece that I think that came out, ironically enough, that Steve sent out today, and in the first sentence, so Steve, if you're listening, some people do actually read every email that you send out. But there was a piece that he put out today, and in the first line it does say, remember, things you have to do. And I'm paraphrasing this, part of every day has to say thank you. Has to say I love you to somebody, everybody that you deal with, because you can't take those things for granted. And the moment you start taking them for granted, like you were just saying, I think you don't even reward yourself. And so that's a huge piece. And I think that goes to my next question then. So that person in the beginning, you mentioned, find your identity. We talked about find your why, and the rest will come. Be who you are, because I think that sometimes you may agree with me on this one here. If today I'm doing 3 or 4 loans a month, and my goal is to be Mike Mann, closing 50 to 70 loans a month, and I don't close 50 or 70 loans a month next month, I close 4. I don't realize I doubled my numbers. I just know that I failed getting the 50 to 70 loans. And so am I a success because I doubled my numbers, or am I failure because I didn't immediately meet my expectations of being like a Mike Mann?
That just reminds me of an exercise we did, just being realistic within our goals, right? So we did this exercise. We wanted our goal to be, 187 million or something like that, right? So actually what's really funny is every time we've set a goal, every year we've accomplished it. And it's funny, it just came out of my mouth several months, it was a year ago, as we were planning 2017. I said, I'm sick and tired of making goals that we can easily achieve. So we're going BHAG here, 187 million. And we took 187 million, we divided it by 12. And we said, okay, January you got to close this, February, right? And it was weird because I don't know what 187 million divided by 12 is off the top of my head.
It's a lot.
But in January, we closed like 6 million. And I think it's something like, 14 million a month or something like that. Then what happened was we looked at it and said, hold on, let's look at the percentages for the past 3 years. And how much business of our overall volume did we do in January? So let's be more realistic. So instead of 14 million a month, we did a percentage, and the goal was only like 8 million for January. So instead of missing it by 8 million, we only missed it by 2. So be realistic with your goals. Know that January, February, March might be a little bit slower. May, June, July, and August might be a little bit bigger. So that speaks kind of the overall goal. But again, don't think you're going to go from 3 to 4 loans a month to 40 a month next year. It's a process. Live in today. Appreciate today. Celebrate today. Don't look into the future, and don't look into the past. Celebrate today, because the past is the past and you can't do anything about that. And you don't know what the future holds. You can plan for the future, but that might change in the next 6 days, 6 weeks, or 6 months. And if you celebrate today or live in today and worry about what you can do today, I think it leads to a happier, more fulfilling, and more accomplished year at the end of the year if you only worry about today.
Agreed. I agree with that. So social media. So what's your thoughts on social media? I mean, I saw the Facebook thing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your feelings on social media?
I think if you're not doing social media, you're swinging and missing right now. It's a big miss. So it's a big miss if you're not using it. Social media for us, it's one of my biggest platforms right now. And I think I'm missing on things such as Instagram. I'm not using Twitter like I should. And I know most people use Facebook, but I think there's Twitter, I think there's Instagram, there's Pinterest out there. Gary Vaynerchuk is big on Snapchat.
What about LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, yeah, absolutely. I don't use that as much either. But I think if you're not using some of the platforms, you're missing. If you're not using any of the platforms, you're missing big.
All right. And then, where do you go? So this is a kind of a question that someone asked me one time, and I wanted to pose this question to you. Where do you go both mentally and physically to basically kind of get your head right? I mean, we all have good and bad days. We have good and bad days that we drive ourselves that causes that good or bad day. We have that, somebody causes when you're managing and you're leading people. Let's be honest, for all the people out there that we manage and lead, they cause that good or bad day. So where do you go to get your head right? I mean, what do you do physically? What do you do, mentally to get your head right? Because you have to have that. I think you would agree.
Absolutely. Mentally, when I'm spinning my tires, I like to go to Vermont, Killington, Vermont. I like to get up into the mountains. I'm a huge skier, so in the wintertime, go there to ski. But in the summertime, it's like there's only a population of like 1,000 people, and it's empty. It's quiet. There's leaves. There's breeze. It rains. It's a lot of nature, stuff. When I'm spinning my tires, that's where I go to. Physically, I mean, believe it or not, I like to exert myself. So I would go to the local mountain here. It's not nearly as big as Vermont, but go into the woods, take a hike up the trail. I go back to nature, man. Cool. Nature, water, mountains.
Okay. Awesome. And then, just to wrap up, I mean, I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things that we talked about in the beginning about your military. You touched on that at the beginning of all this, but I think that a lot of people don't realize that your commitment to serving the military goes beyond just what you do in terms of loans for the military. We talked about some things that you've done over the past couple of years, from giving away homes and all of that. So if you mind, just let us know what you're doing. Tell us what you're doing, and tell us what you got planned for this upcoming year.
In conjunction with the American Warrior Initiative, back in 2014, we ended up doing a home giveaway out in Sharon, Pennsylvania. That was an absolutely life and business changing event for me. That was amazing.
How so?
Just to do something for somebody that they would never expect somebody to do, just to be able to honor them in that way, just to honor all of our military veterans, all the people that were there. Also, what we did was we educated the Realtors on that, VA loans aren't as hard as you used to think they were. Our veterans need that benefit, and don't sway them in any different direction because it's a harder loan to do, stuff like that. How to treat our veterans. So that was really cool. We've done that 3 times. So we've educated over 500 Realtors on how to better serve our military community on their side, by being a real estate agent. Since then, we've done 2 Disney giveaways, which was absolutely cool to honor, again, families not even thinking that this is coming their way. In the local community, we've done, we've done the anonymous payoff of, furniture, someone's vehicle, groceries. We did, we do Christmas, surprise Christmas for people that we know that are struggling, that don't have stuff. So I start saying about a year ago, I want to do this veterans retreat. Well, the gentleman that I talked to, who introduced me to the family we did the Disney giveaway for, runs a foundation called Valor that helps veterans. And he's doing a veterans retreat, but he doesn't have a place for it. And he's raising money to purchase one. So he and I happen to run into each other a year later at my daughter's school. And just in talking, and I'm like, the guy's name is Mark. And I said, hey, Mark, one of the things that I'm looking to do is I want to build a veterans retreat, where veterans can get counseling, can go fishing, can take their families, and he's like, dude, you and I need to talk. Because that was his initiative. And running into him, it has just accelerated that timeline 4 years faster than I really thought it was going to happen. And it looks like we're actually going to get this veterans retreat up and running off the ground as of January 1st, awesome. 2018. It's unbelievable, man. This is an unbelievable story. But I want to go back to, this kind of goes back to some of the other questions you were asking before. I left this out. One of the biggest things that changed my career. So one of the biggest things that changed my career was when I let go. Now I said when I let go of stuff here, right? What I actually mean was a few years prior to that, I let my business go to the man upstairs. It was at another point where I had lost a lot. I didn't lose everything, but it was early on in my career. I didn't have much at a certain time, and my father was still alive. I wasn't doing that well in the business, and I wanted to go to this event, the mortgage event that I was going to. And it was with my very first mentor, Mr. Brian Peart. He owned a company back then, but he was doing like this coaching thing, and I got attracted to him because the message that he was sending on a weekly basis was like resonating with me. And I paid to go to this event, and I could not afford the plane ticket at the time when I needed to purchase it to go to the event in a couple of months. It was like a December thing or whatever. And my dad calls me out of the blue, and he goes, hey, I just wanted to call, and he never calls me out of the blue and asks me this question. Is there something that you need? I just feel like there's something, can I help you with something? And I said, well, actually, Dad, there's this guy I want to go to, can't afford the plane ticket. He buys me the plane ticket. So I get down there, go through the event, and at the last day of this event, he says, hey, listen, I want to share my testimony. You don't have to stay in the room. I won't be offended, but for those that want to hear the testimony of Jesus, just stay and hang out. I stayed, and I was like, yeah, man, I need to renew my faith. I grew up Catholic. My relationship with God was not, it was non-existent. And I was like, man, I need to ask him more questions about this. So I said to God in my head, I want 10 minutes with this guy. Let me talk with this guy for 10 minutes. And as he was wrapping up, he said, okay, at 4 o'clock, we're ending the event. I'm going to stick around for an hour, so I'm going to leave at 5. I'll answer any questions anybody has. So 4 o'clock comes, and at the typical rush at the end of the event, everybody rushes, oh, thank you, Brian, it was awesome. Well, funny enough, at 4:50, 10 minutes before 5, when he said he was going to leave, this is no exaggeration. I look at my watch. At 4:50, I'm the only one in the room with him.
That's awesome.
I walk up to the table and kind of get his attention. He's getting ready to go. And he just stops in the middle of what he was doing. He looks at me. He goes, you all right, man? Like, yeah, I just want to talk with you if we can. And we sit down. We start talking. Then all the walls open up, and the people are coming in, breaking down, getting ready for the next event. We can't hear each other. So he goes, hey, let's go outside. We go outside. It's just hustle and bustle. And he says, hey, man, how long are you staying? Do you want to grab some dinner? So now I'm going to have dinner with the guy that I looked up to most in the industry.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. This is great. We go to this amazing dinner. We talk about, the good and evil that happens and why things happen. And keep the story a little bit shorter here, sparing some of the details. But at the end of the day, he goes, hey, man, can I invite you into the kingdom of Jesus? Like, I'm a Christian. I just want to, can I invite you in? Grabs my hand, comes in like this, says a prayer, and looks at me and goes, you're going to heaven, dude? Jesus is your buddy. And I'm like, yeah, Jesus is my buddy. And I walked out of there just feeling really good. And part of what we talked about at dinner was letting go. Right. And when I said, all right, man, you're in charge. And I just said, you're in charge of this thing. I'm tired of the ups and downs. Right. And this was years before even my dad died and my daughter was born early. And the funny part is, the story could end with, oh, things got so much better when you gave it up to the Lord. It got worse. It actually got way worse. Right. And the cool part is, even though it got way worse, I always still felt he was in control. Yeah. And the more that I injected myself, the more that I tried to solve issues or problems or whatever, the worse it got. Yeah. And that really is the answer to the question of how it all began. Sure. It was that day.
Yeah, there is. I think everyone has that moment. And I think you come, and it's funny, ironically enough, they have that come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
And they use that as an epiphany. And some people, it really is just that. It is a come to Jesus moment. And I think that people can identify it, people can find it. So what's a day in the life of Mike Mann? Let's wrap it up with a day in the life of Mike Mann, because obviously everybody has their day to day, and they can learn from your day to day.
For me, each day is different, but we have certain things that are done on certain days. So, for example, here in the office, if I'm coming into the office, it's spending a couple minutes with everybody here, kind of like how we walked around. Yeah. Just saying hi, see how you're doing. A lot of loan officers, LONE, loan officers. It's just them, so they may not have a team. They may not have to do that. they think of the customer, the person buying the home, as their client. I'd encourage you to change that and think of your client as the realtor, and the person buying the home as the customer, or as a client. For me, what my business has evolved to is my client is my team. My team's my actual client. So I come in here and I make sure they're good. How you doing? I sit and spend a couple minutes. I don't spend 4 hours, but I spend a couple minutes to say, how was your day? How was your weekend? Monday mornings, we'll do a Monday morning jump start. Everybody's in here by 9 o'clock. 10, 15, 20 minutes, just some motivational stuff. Then we go. Salespeople, LOs break into their call blocks. That's generally like a Monday, Tuesday type of thing. The first Thursday of every month, I'll teach a course over here at Brookside. So I'm reporting there in the morning, a couple hours, have some lunch after the event, just spending time with agents. We'll teach, probably every other week, we'll teach 1 or 2 classes. So I'm doing one-to-many presentations. I used to do one-to-one, one-to-one realtors. I used to meet 10, 12 agents a week, go to the same place and do my stacking appointments. I've gotten away from that, but I'm doing the one-to-many presentations. So now I'm teaching 20, 30, 60 agents at a clip, as opposed to doing one-on-one. So
how often do you do that?
This month we're doing, I think we have 7 or 8 going.
Wow,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yep. The other time is, again, so you met some of my operations team. Holly, Jason, Ken. They really run the day-to-day here. So when there's an issue, you asked about the phone, how tied am I to my phone? When there's an issue, really people go there, they go to them, and they can handle 80% of the issues. So most of the time, if people are calling me, it's them, not necessarily an LO saying, hey, DU's down, what do I do? So really, it's just about relationships for me now.
I really appreciate your time. I think that a lot of what we said here today is going to be valuable for a lot of people that are in this industry and either looking to start this industry, in the middle part of their career where they're looking to grow their business, or even from a management perspective like myself that is looking to grow the people around them. I think you've given some great points. I think you've given some just some amazing feedback, how you've grown your business, and truly, I always believe if you help somebody, if you've given one piece of idea out, it's been a success. And I truly say,
if it helps one, man, it helps
all
one.
the stuff you've given today is definitely a lot more than just one, and it'll be successful for myself and hopefully a lot of other people.
Very cool, man.
Thanks,
Awesome.
buddy.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.